Hi, welcome to this video where I go over my model on how to create righteous masculinity. Now, in other videos, I will talk about why righteous masculinity is important and a little bit about why femininity is important, although that's not the focus of this channel. It is very important. But before I get started, I just want to ask that if you're new to the channel, please watch my rules of engagement video, which is linked in the show notes, in the video notes, and then we can get started. So I believe that some of the most basic responsibilities of a man is to provide, protect, and to preside for his family and anyone else around him. And when a man does this, he creates an area of safety for anyone there. So my model for building righteous masculinity includes the three rafters to protect, provide, and preside, and which creates protection and safety. But I do it in this building kind of way. We're going to go through what all of these symbolize. So first, let's talk about the foundation. With any building, with anything, you need to have a strong foundation. And for anyone who is here with some experience, you know what that foundation should be. We know that it is upon the rock of our Redeemer that we should build our foundation if we never want to fall. So the very first thing that I encourage every man to do in his walk to find righteous masculinity is to develop his relationship with God. So we need to know who God is, who we are in relationship to him, as well as what his plan is for us in our lives. And this all will help us develop spiritual health and make sure that we are strong. Just like Jesus said that if a man hears his voice is like a man who builds his house upon a rock, and when the floods came, it held firm. We want to be that way, so we want to be built on that rock. Now, right along with that is two interesting ideas that I would like to talk about. First of all, these are powers that come to us when we improve our relationship with God. First, we need to know what our worth is, not because of what we've done, but because of our relationship to God. That can help us to find confidence. And confidence is a very important thing for masculinity. The second thing that we need to realize is that because we are God's sons, because the plan that we're here for is to grow, is we need to realize that we have an amazing potential and an amazing calling as we try to become like him, to be righteous and powerful like he is. So as we build our spiritual health, we need to focus on these two things. And here's why. Because I can know all about God and all about his plan, but if I don't have confidence in my part in that plan, I'm not going to get a lot done. And so these two things can help a man really recognize what his strengths are and to lean into them. That's why I've added these with the spiritual foundation. Now, on to the four pillars of the building that we are trying to create. First is health. And I break this down into physical health, emotional health, and mental health. Let me start a little bit with emotional and mental health. Physical health might come across as quite, that makes sense. But emotional health and mental health is also very needed because in our day, we aren't really protecting our family from invading tribes or that tiger over there in the bush. Most of what we are protecting our family from is unrighteous influences. And sometimes that can be really hard as we set an example and set boundaries for our family, especially our kids. They might push back on us. And to be able to hold our good, strong, healthy boundaries, our righteous boundaries, we need to have emotional and mental health to carry the load of the mean things our kids can say. My son is only 5, and sometimes he tells me I'm the worst dad ever. I'm sure he has a very small sample size. Granted, I will give him that I'm probably the worst dad he's ever had, but yeah. Anyway, if I were to take that personally from my 5-year-old or from my 15-year-old, then that's going to get in the way. We have to have emotional and mental health. Now, physical health, makes sense. If we're going to protect our family, we've got to have the physical health to do that. If we're going to provide for our family, we need the physical health to do that. But I believe that it is important, and honestly, our culture in the United States is not one where we focus on physical health. So that's going to be a focus for me. And right along with that is testosterone. So some interesting things about testosterone. The average man has about 15 times as much testosterone as the average woman when she is at her peak of testosterone. That's a big difference. And this change this difference in testosterone explains a lot of the character traits that are different between men and women. So one of the things that I'm going to encourage everyone to do is just to make sure that they have good testosterone levels. Now, the nice thing about that is there's some physical exercises that can do that. Just doing weight training is good. And we'll talk about that more as I go into depth in all of these in a future video. Okay, now the second pillar is time with another man. Why is this important? Is because masculinity is taught man to man. You can read books, and you can. I've listened to a podcast by a woman, and she outlines a lot of masculine traits and things like that, which is good. She's got a lot of mental know-how, but there's the learning of the facts, and there's the really learning how to do it, and that is done man to man. And right along with this is a very important thing, and that is that fathers should teach their sons, and fathers and sons should develop masculinity together. Now that's kind of hard. A lot of people, men and women in our days, have father wounds. But if a man is going to become masculine, he needs to heal through that with his father. And if his father's still around, I would encourage all men to find closure, find healing, and spend time with your father, and try and develop righteous masculinity together. And if your father's not around anymore, you cannot have a face-to-face with him. You still need to work through the healing that's required. Finally, together men should face challenges and adventure. We should have bonds and do fun stuff together that help us to grow. And I'll talk more about these in future videos. Next, I want to talk about something interesting, and that's what I've learned when I've gone outside and in the books that I've read and the hours I've listened to what it means to be masculine. A lot of them talk about developing alpha male traits. They talk about how alpha males are generally more attractive to women. And I don't disagree with any of that. But what I'm going to say is that if a man who does not naturally have that aggressive leadership kind of personality, it can be challenging for him to say, oh, you know what, I'm just going to go out there now and be the alpha male. And I'm not going to tell you to do that. The reason is because part of being masculine is knowing who you are and being okay with that. And if you want to go out and pretend to be the alpha and walk around with your chest out and, just be all macho and things like that, you're not going to be congruent. And sooner or later, that's going to bite you in the butt. So what I encourage every man to do, though, is to gain competency in at least one area. That could be a sport, that could be a hobby, that could be your career, whatever it is. And it doesn't have to be just one area. If you're confident in 7 areas, great, good for you. But I would encourage every man, no matter how natural this may feel, to pick one area where you can become an expert and you can lead. And the reason why this is important is because part of masculinity is confidence. And if you don't have the know-how or the power and strength, as well as the confidence to lead other people, you're going to be missing something as you try and develop your masculinity. Okay, now the fourth pillar is adventure and challenge. Now I want to talk about rites of passage. I find it interesting that cultures from various locations across the world who have not had a lot of interaction with each other have come up with different rites of passage. It has been just something that has popped up all over the world, which to me shows how important it is. In these rites of passage, as a young man becomes close to the age of manhood or becoming an adult, they're given some kind of challenge, whether that's, hey, climb up to the top of that mountain and bring home a rock from there, or whether that's go out into the wilderness and fast until you have a spiritual experience. There is some challenge, some difficult obstacle that must be overcome before the boy is considered a man. And I think that's really important. Nowadays, it is so easy for us to just have work and family. And that's what we do. We do work and family. And we're just in this continuous cycle that's the same every day. But without having some kind of adventure or challenge, we lose our drive and our fire and our passion. And we need that passion to do God's will and His work in our lives. So I'm going to encourage all of us to find something that lights our fire. And that can be a challenge like getting a master's degree or starting your own business, which can be a lot of hard work. Or it could be an adventure like, hey, we're going to go whitewater rafting next year, or skydiving, or something like that. Or it could be a mixture of both. But I think that every man should have a challenge that he's working on and an adventure that he is going on soon or he's planning to go on in the future. Both of these things will light our fire and give us the energy that we need. Finally, back to the the three rafters: to protect, provide, and preside. First, protecting, that makes sense. We all know that the average man is stronger than the average woman, especially in our upper body. We are able to protect. Biologically, you can look at the differences between the genders and you can see that we're probably going to be the ones that are better able to protect. That's why wars throughout history have generally been fought by men. It would not be fair to send women out to fight against men. So protecting makes sense, and that's the way it's been for a long time. But not only are we supposed to protect physically, which does make sense because of our physical differences, but it is our job to protect our families spiritually and emotionally from the damage that comes from the world. We get to set guidelines on what kind of media is appropriate for our homes to protect our families. Next is provide. Now, this has changed in the last 60, 70 years. Before then, it was fairly common that the lion's share fell on the man to provide for his family. I believe that is still the case. Now, if a woman is called to some kind of work outside the home, then I say you follow your calling and you follow where God leads you. But I still think it should be the man's responsibility to be in a position to be able to provide for his family, all of his family needs, if the woman is not called to some specific work outside of the home. And we'll talk more about that in future videos. Finally, preside. This is the hardest one in our culture. And this doesn't mean that the man is the boss. And honestly, I'm not really sure. This is a weakness of mine. I have not fully developed what is the best way to talk about how presiding righteously looks. But I still believe that it is the man's responsibility to lead his family in righteousness. That doesn't mean that he's ahead of his wife. It also doesn't mean that he pushes his wife out in front to do all the work, but that side by side, they are moving in the right direction. We'll talk more about all of these in future videos. I will take each one of these concepts and dive in deep. The first pillar on health, we're going to probably break into 3 different videos because there's a lot of content there. And but this will get you a good beginning. So I ask, what are you doing in each of these areas to strengthen and focus in each of these areas? And how do you think focusing on these will help improve your righteous masculinity? Leave your comments below. Love to hear what you say, and together we'll grow. Thank you for watching and your time. Appreciate it.